Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show. Before I get on out of here, I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly, it involves Caitlin.
Everything we thought we understood about the power structure in pro sports is on the verge of getting wiped clean. For months, the storyline has centered on the cheap shots, the disrespect, and the jealous digs thrown Caitlin Clark's way. While veteran players were busy trying to welcome the rookie with rough fouls and unnecessary hostility, someone with far deeper pockets was paying close attention. And this time, we're not talking about sneakers. We're not talking about a nice contract bump either. What's now being whispered is a $1 billion shakeup, one that Stephen A. Smith just gave real credibility to. Live on television. The rumors aren't living on random message boards anymore. Multiple reports now suggest that the Saudi Public Investment Fund is lining up a full-scale, aggressive move into women's basketball. And at the center of that plan sit two names they reportedly want to build around: Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham. That pairing alone, one of the most electrifying shooters of her era, matched with one of the league's most charismatic and marketable personalities, would instantly create a breakaway product the WNBA has zero ability to stop. Stephen A. warned the league months ago. He told them outright, if they didn't protect their superstar, someone else would simply come in and buy everything around her. And now, it looks like that prediction is inching toward reality. To understand why this billionaire-level rumor has executives shaking, look at who's ringing the alarm bell. Stephen A. Smith has been the biggest, clearest voice calling out how poorly Caitlin Clark has been treated. While other analysts tried to sugarcoat the hard fouls, the attitude, the just part of the game excuses, Stephen A. called it what it truly was: envy. He went on national TV and blasted the league for botching the greatest opportunity it has ever had. He highlighted everything, from Clark flying commercial to Kennedy Carter's cheap shot to the baffling decision to keep her off the Olympic roster. But his tone has shifted from criticism to full-blown warning. According to him, the marketplace always finds balance, and you cannot bury a megastar in a system that pays her $76,000 while she generates hundreds of millions in value. In other words, if the WNBA won't elevate her, someone else with much deeper pockets absolutely will. Stephen A. didn't mince words. He made it clear that the WNBA's veterans thought they could pressure Caitlin Clark into falling in line, forcing her to earn it the old-fashioned way. What they failed to recognize is that today's sports world runs on player power, not seniority. By acknowledging these investment rumors on air, Stephen A. basically underscored one message: loyalty disappears the moment disrespect shows up. He's essentially saying, you did this to yourselves. The league treated her like an outsider, and now she might end up becoming their biggest threat. Let's talk numbers, because this is where everything gets exposed. The WNBA salary structure is locked down by a strict cap. Caitlin Clark's rookie contract, 4 years, around $338,000 total, roughly $76,000 this season. Meanwhile, NBA players who barely get off the bench make that in a single week. And the league's defense has always been the same: we don't have the revenue. We've been losing money for decades. But here's the problem: that Caitlin Clark erased that excuse in 3 months. Since her arrival, attendance has skyrocketed. Jerseys are selling at historic levels. TV ratings are hitting highs no one has seen in decades. She's bringing in millions. And in return, she's earning a salary that wouldn't even get her a decent apartment in New York or LA. This is why the Saudi rumors suddenly feel less like gossip and more like inevitability. The Saudi Public Investment Fund doesn't think in thousands or even millions. They think in billions. When they look at Clark, they don't see a rookie who's supposed to wait her turn. They see one of the world's most underpriced superstars. If the talk of a $1 billion women's basketball venture is real, the kind of contract Clark would receive wouldn't be a paycheck. It would be a kingdom, an upfront number big enough to eclipse the entire lifetime earnings of every WNBA player combined. Put that next to $76,000 and what choice is there? And here's the part people are ignoring. This isn't just about signing a star. This is a strategic power move. We've witnessed this exact strategy before, and it shook an entire sport to its core. Think back to LIV Golf. The PGA Tour controlled the world of golf for generations. They dictated every dollar, every tournament, every rule. Then Saudi Arabia stepped in and rewrote the script. They didn't negotiate. They didn't compromise. They bought the biggest names in the sport: Phil Mickelson, Dustin Johnson, and more, with hundreds of millions up front. Critics howled, media called it sports washing, but the players took the money. And eventually, the PGA Tour folded and agreed to merge. Now insiders believe that exact playbook is being aimed at women's basketball. The WNBA is exposed. Low salaries, years of poor travel conditions, and rising frustration among its stars. It's a perfect setup for an outside force to take control. And by going directly after Caitlin Clark, the Saudis are targeting the heartbeat of the sport. Without her influence, the WNBA sinks back into the shadows. With her, their new league becomes the center of global conversation overnight. But one superstar isn't enough to build a league. You need rivalries. You need personalities. You need marketable talent surrounding her. And that's exactly why Caitlin Clark won't be the only target. This is exactly where the speculation around Sophie Cunningham enters the picture. And the question everyone keeps asking is simple. Why her? Why not an MVP like Aja Wilson or Brianna Stewart? The answer comes down to two things no league can buy: marketability and audience appeal. Sophie has built a massive fan base, not just because of how she plays, but because of the brand she's created around herself. She's recognizable. She knows how to command attention online. She checks every box advertisers drool over. There's a reason the broadcast cameras always seem to find her on the bench. She drives engagement. The belief is that this new Saudi-backed league wants to launch with a roster built around global star power. And pairing Caitlin Clark with Sophie Cunningham gives them exactly what they need. Clark brings the generational talent. Cunningham brings the personality and edge. Together, they form the perfect marketing duo to introduce a brand new product to the world. Stephen A. Smith has talked about the business side of sports for years, and this fits directly into his argument. A league thrives on stars who put fans in seats. Clark fills arenas. Cunningham sells the show. It's not complicated, but the real question is this: why would Caitlin Clark even think about leaving the league she dreamed of playing in? Well, because the WNBA didn't welcome her. It targeted her. From the moment she arrived, it felt like the veterans made her the enemy. Diana Taurasi went on national TV during the Final Four and practically warned Clark that reality was about to hit her. It didn't sound like mentorship, it sounded like insecurity. And when Clark officially joined the league, the hostility didn't stop. She was picked up full court, hammered in the lane, shoved to the floor, and half the time the refs acted like they forgot their whistles at home. Then came the infamous Kennedy Carter hip check, a play that had nothing to do with basketball and everything to do with sending a message. Stephen A. Smith absolutely erupted after that moment. He questioned where her teammates were. He questioned why the league refused to protect its biggest draw. The overall picture became undeniable. The old guard wasn't interested in passing the torch. They wanted to snuff it out. With that environment, it's not hard to understand why an exit looks increasingly attractive. Why stay somewhere you're resented, underpaid, and unprotected when another league is offering respect, superstar treatment, and 50 times the money? And this isn't even the first attempt to lure her away. Remember when Ice Cube publicly offered Caitlin $5 million for just 8 games in the Big Three? That single offer was worth more than her entire WNBA career earnings. She declined it because she wanted to prove herself in the WNBA. She wanted to win there. But that was before the constant targeting, before the overwhelming media pressure, before the lack of support. Now the landscape is completely different, and the rumored Saudi deal makes Ice Cube's $5 million look like pocket change. What sets this potential offer apart is the structure. Chase. This isn't a side gig, it's a complete league alternative. A global tour, premium travel, fewer games, no salary cap. Everything WNBA players have complained about for years, suddenly solved. Ice Cube proved Clark's market value. The Saudis are proving they have the money to turn that value into a permanent empire. Now let's flip the camera and move into the office of WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. If these rumors are true, she is staring at a worst-case scenario. The league is negotiating a massive new media rights contract with networks like Disney, Amazon, and NBC. They're asking for billions, and their entire pitch hinges on one phenomenon: Caitlin Clark. Every presentation, every chart, every slide is the same. Viewership skyrocketing because of Clark. Ticket sales exploding because of Clark. Merchandise flying because of Clark. But if Clark suddenly announces she's signing with a rival league, that leverage vanishes instantly. Networks aren't paying billions for the WNBA alone. They're paying for the Clark effect. Remove her, and the entire deal collapses. And if the TV deal collapses, so does the revenue that players, especially the same veterans who resented her, have been counting on. The irony is almost unbelievable. The very players who pushed her away may have sabotaged their own financial future. Stephen A. Smith has been hinting at this exact moment for months. His message was simple: you can't sabotage the star who feeds your entire ecosystem and expect everything to stay the same. And now the consequences are knocking loudly, but we can't ignore the topic that always surfaces whenever the Saudi Public Investment Fund gets involved. The moral outrage machine turns on instantly. We heard it with LIV Golf. We heard it when Cristiano Ronaldo took his record-breaking deal, and it's guaranteed we'll hear it again now. Critics will cry about human rights, about sports washing, about ethics. But Stephen A. has repeatedly pointed out one uncomfortable truth: principles don't pay your bills. No one riots when NBA players sign massive deals tied to China. LIV Golf players took their paydays, and after a few months of backlash, everyone moved on. The reality is much harsher for women. They've been underpaid for so long that the moral calculus isn't comparable. Can anyone truly fault a WNBA player for accepting $10 million when her current employer barely values her at $76,000? Fans might argue in circles online, but history shows one pattern: fans follow the stars. If Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham played basketball on Mars, people would find a way to watch. Temporary outrage eventually fades. Life-changing money does not. Now let's zoom back in on the Sophie Cunningham angle, because it reveals something bigger. Her involvement suggests that this new league may ditch the city-based team model entirely. Instead, insiders believe it could function like tennis or golf, a global tour. Picture this: Clark, Cunningham, and other top-tier players traveling from New York to London, Tokyo to Dubai, competing in high-stakes events instead of slogging through empty arena regular season games. Every stop becomes an event. Every matchup becomes a spectacle. Bringing Sophie in isn't just basketball, it's marketing. She and Clark have chemistry, personality, style, the kind of duo that resonates far beyond US borders. They embody a newer generation of players who are unapologetic, charismatic, and built for the digital age. And that's exactly what terrifies the WNBA, because a global tour doesn't steal the die-hard fans. It steals all the new fans. The millions who only tuned in because of Caitlin Clark. They will go wherever she goes. If she joins a Saudi-backed Super League with Cunningham at her side, the WNBA instantly becomes the feeder system for the real show. What makes the rumor even harder to dismiss is the silence from everyone involved. Normally, agents shut these things down in seconds, but this time, Clark's camp isn't denying it. Cunningham's side hasn't said a word. Stephen A. is amplifying the story, not calming it down. In sports, that kind of silence usually means one thing: something is happening behind the scenes. Whether they're using the offer as leverage or genuinely preparing for a historic exit, the quiet speaks volumes. Timing matters too. The WNBA season is brutal. Commercial flights, constant travel, physical wear and tear. As the grind intensifies, the appeal of private jets, global events, and billion-dollar backing becomes impossible to ignore. The players are finally realizing they hold the power. So where does that leave us? Right at the edge of the biggest transformation women's sports has ever seen. Stephen A. Smith has said it plainly: the WNBA had the gift of a generation placed in its lap, and instead of embracing it, jealousy and poor leadership pushed that gift away. If the rumored $1 billion Saudi Women's League becomes real, headlined by Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham, it won't just shake the WNBA, it will redefine the entire landscape of women's sports. This isn't a payday, this is a revolution, a declaration that if traditional leagues refuse to compensate women according to their value, someone else will. And the uncomfortable truth: the era of Clark and Cunningham might unfold outside WNBA jerseys. If that happens, the WNBA has no one to blame but itself. The question is no longer if she leaves. The question is when. And when that press conference airs and the number on that contract gets revealed, the entire sports world will feel the shockwave. So here's the final question: would you watch a breakaway Super League featuring Clark and Cunningham, or stick with the WNBA? Your answer might just determine the future of the sport.